All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the debut episode of What's Current with Luns and Sean. For those of you who don't know me, I go by Luns. That's like lungs without the G, although I am one. Based out of Columbus, Ohio. For almost a decade now, I've been a musician, rapper, singer, songwriter. And so more recently, started exploring writing and podcasting. But I would say above all else, for me, I'm a creator. So although this podcast is going to cover kind of a broad range of ideas and topics of Sean and I's, that's where I'll start. So for those of you that consider yourselves a creative of sorts, or might feel like you're creative and just haven't fully tapped into or identified what all that might mean, I do think this show is going to bring you some value. I think it's especially going to bring value to those who can relate to some of the creative interests of Sean and I. But even for those of you that specialize outside, the artistic world per se or whatever, I think that I hope that this show becomes an enjoyable listen because you just like podcasts, or because you know us already, or just because you enjoy listening to good conversation and having your mind opened to kind of new ideas. I think kind of we'll have it all for you. A good blend of a lot of different things. And for those of you that already know me, I can be a talker and a rambler. I'm going to try to not go for hours each episode, but just hear us out, and I'm sure we're going to find some common ground along the way. So yeah, again, the show is going to be co-hosted by my homie Sean. He's been my right-hand man throughout the birth of the new being that is our podcast. It is finally here. And yeah, I'll let Sean take it away for a bit. So yeah, Sean, let him know what's going on. What's going on, my guy?
Yeah, good intro, man. Yeah, to kind of reiterate what Kev said, we've kind of been behind the scenes trying to get this podcast off the ground for a while, and really, he and I kind of go back, just started from a friendship that just was centered around having good conversations. Really, we would always find ourselves talking about things that we were going through, lessons we learned from that, just kind of life experiences, and just having a good time while doing it. So we kind of jokingly said, "Hey, we're going to start a podcast," and that was probably a year or two ago, and here we are, just kind of following through on that. So yeah, a little bit of background on me. I don't have quite the creative resume as Lunds, being the rapper and musical talent. But the more I thought about it, I'm an engineer by background, and I know a lot of stereotypes might say that engineers are super rational, and you're always following guidelines, which is true. But I think the more I thought about it, um, actually, what I do is create too. Always kind of creating things in the built environment and whatnot, which is cool. But also I found myself kind of yearning for this other type of creative outlet, kind of expressing thoughts and experiences, and um, just things that have kind of become more interesting to me as I've gotten older. Just wanting to kind of relate some of my experiences to people, because I'm a believer that the human experience in general, like, we all go through a lot of the same things. Everybody's has a different ride along the way, but anything that somebody's going through, other people probably have too. So I thought, with me and Lons out here talking about things we're interested in, things we think are current, hopefully listeners find value in that. And yeah, we're just out here having fun, and just kind of a passion project that we're excited to get off the ground. So I think that's kind of my background on things.
Yeah, man. The For sure, and despite the engineer, like you said, stigmas or what have you, I think you've helped engineer some pretty creative and some mind opening discussions just that you and I have had, like you said, for at least a year now, maybe more than that. I think that the seeds for me, the seeds of creating my own podcast were planted at least a couple years ago, probably back in 2018, I would say. And so, with us just kind of talking like we normally would and then deciding it'd be fun to kind of record that, I think that helped build a good foundation for something that you and I realized that we're both cut out for. I feel like we've got a decent bit of content at this point, and so now that we're off and running, the show, although it's called What's Current, and we're going to try to be bringing a kind of a feel of what was current with how we're living or what we're interested in at the time or whatnot. I think that because we've got other content in the vault per se, that one of my goals will be to slice and dice some of that quality stuff methodically into episodes that makes sense, and I'll try to kind of date things for the people whenever I feel necessary so that they can better frame what was current at the time we recorded it. But yeah, I mean, I think you as the listener will hopefully find value in what Sean and I have talked about whenever we've talked about it. And like so many of us do with new projects, I did spend a long time trying to calculate things with this podcast, kind of like how to move forward with it, how to time it up right, how to make sure everything was perfect before we went public with this. And I'll admit Sean's been ready. I think maybe I've been the one kind of holding back a little bit, but there's just been some lifestyle changes I needed to address, and kind of restructuring my creative world, balancing things with music and my other creative interests. And but I've been changing what I've needed to make this show kind of a more deserving top priority of my time. So like Sean was saying, we're kind of we're just getting this thing started. He and I are on the wave of quote unquote just start, where there never is going to be a right time for anything. It's never going to be perfect. It wasn't the right time for in anyone's opinion, I don't think, for COVID-19. Now, that being said, a lot of people in hindsight now, with their adjustments and their other unique kind of lifestyle, what's unique to their lives, have realized, oh, well, this maybe really was the perfect time for me to kind of make these changes. Or I think what people have been able to do to kind of reframe this, obviously negative thing that's impacted a lot of people. And fortunately, nothing too close to myself or Sean that I can really think of, but it's been a fresh start. And so I know that, obviously coronavirus and all that's something that you guys have all heard, plenty of now, to where you're sick of really it being kind of the headline of everything you look at or listen to. So I think anything that Sean and I might move forward with that related to that will just be less about the main news you hear about it and kind of the negatives and all that, but more so the positives and what we've been able to draw from it. The kind of both the obvious and not so obvious ways that it's benefited, and may continue to benefit us all. But there's not a right time for anything. It's kind of just letting things unfold as they will, doing your part to make the most of each situation, and that's where we're at. It's even though the podcast I feel like has a lot of work to do, we're just going to get it off the ground, get this thing running.
That's right, man. That's one of the things when we were talking a couple months ago that really hit me, was just the just start thing. I mean, it's so applicable to every part of your life, really, even down to just waking up in the morning, getting the day started. I mean, you might be tired, you might not have had a good night's sleep, but it's time to get up and get it going. And that's kind of what we've done with the podcast. And relating it back to the whole pandemic situation, yeah, there's never a good time for a pandemic, a global pandemic, or big life changes. I know so many people go through unforeseen life changes every day, whether it be with work or relationships or just personal struggles. And, I think this is our creative outlet to kind of talk about some of those things, because as you said, there's a lot of ways to get news and information and really consume various types of media. And I found for me personally that a lot of those things don't make me feel good. I don't enjoy watching national news where everything's so negative, and I don't enjoy um, feeling like I'm consuming so much social media. So this outlet for me has been awesome. Just talking with you and hopefully getting our listeners involved too with topics that they want to talk about, and having guests on the show and whatnot. I think it'll be another way for people to get information, to talk about things, because at the end of the day, I think it's kind of funny how, though everybody is so connected now via social media and the internet and technology, you oftentimes feel more alone, almost, that you're not really talking face to face. You're not really talking to people, period. So this is kind of our way of counteracting that to a degree. So yeah, one thing, Luns and I kind of send each other little recorded messages throughout the week, talking about topics that we like, that we might want to talk about on the show here. And one thing that came up this week was the people versus things idea. Was something I had read about, and just kind of valuing time with people over tasks that you think you need to do, or whatnot. I mean, obviously everybody's got work to do and bills to pay, but when it's all said and done, it's really your time with people and relationships that you'll probably look back on and value more in hindsight, and maybe even learn more, and kind of get out of that rut of feeling like the rat race of life. There's a lot of positivity out there that's just waiting to be discovered. So I'm definitely learning that along the way too. I'm not, and I think that's one thing Lons would agree on, is that we're not preaching anything, telling people how to live or whatnot. Again, it's just things that have helped us and things that we're learning, and think that other people could learn as well for benefits to them. And that's what it's all about. It's just about being connected, and I think that's the goal.
Yeah, when I heard you talking about the people versus things beforehand, I definitely 100% connected with that, and have kind of spent the last few years sort of, I guess, dematerializing, kind of reducing the value I've placed on things and replacing that with the value I place on people. I definitely don't think I had in the past always done the best job of zoning in on what is truly most important. And I think that's another way that kind of this whole scenario right now in our world is it is helping people more clearly see what really is important and valuable. And I mean, I guess it's unfortunate that it takes a global pandemic to do that, to really kind of shift us back to the way that us as humans, were originally wired to be. We're just a product of our environments, though. We can't help that technology is where it's at, and that it plays such an important role in what we have to do every day, really. But yeah, man, and I think you hit it on the head with we're not going to tell people how to live their lives, but I think that you and I both want to bring value. I think that's one of the core components of this show, is we want to bring value to our listeners. It's not the show's not going to be about one thing in particular. But yeah, it just might be based on what is current in general with you and I, and how we feel about certain things. And there we'll have guests on too. We'll be talking some of our ideas out with some other people. Some awesome people that uh, there are episodes that'll be an hour or longer with some people other than you and I, which will be interesting. But other than that, we'll just be talking about what we're into, what we're up to, kind of how we're growing. Our perspective, what's important. I'll have some interview style episodes with other musicians, creatives, business people, things like that. And so those shows might be a little bit more intentional, trying to extract some value out of those for the people, but at the same time, just want to have more casual conversations, Sean, with you and with others, more relaxed episodes where we're just hanging out and we're just talking about life. I think we'll touch on some self-improvement stuff, ways that you and I believe that we all can lead more fulfilling lives, from things like that to ways to structure a day, just kind of different things here and there that I think ultimately go back to kind of trying to live maybe the best life that you can, and extracting the most value out of your life that you can, in our short and fleeting time here on Mother Earth.
That's right, man. Yeah, what stood out to me there was the fulfillment thing. That is something that we've kind of hit on in just casual conversations, but that's kind of what it's all about, right? I mean, we're waking up every day, doing our routines, trying to be successful, but the ultimate goal, you can, if you don't feel fulfilled, that it's a pretty empty feeling. So that's something I've been searching for, and I think a lot of people search for, is just that feeling of fulfillment, how to get it, it's different for everybody. This is something that helps me, is just talking. I'm a very open person. I don't tend to hold things back, which can be a good thing. I'm not gonna hide behind my feelings. They usually come out, but obviously it can be a negative thing too. Gotta learn to hold back sometimes. But that's really one of the drivers for me personally. Is just, the older you get, the more you achieve. You gotta learn to look back on all the achievements. It's easy in today's day and age where there's so much instant gratification and you're on to the next task so quick. You got to stop and smell the roses. So I think that's kind of what we're going to be doing here, is just talking about maybe more. You might watch more of the normal news and see a lot of the negativity, and yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, but man, there's a lot of positives too, and it's freeing to kind of talk about those things more of the time than just dwelling on some of the negatives. I mean, yeah, we got to learn from the negatives, but I don't know, it's just kind of a positive energy vibe, and seeing what that attracts.
The smell of the roses thing, that's difficult. At least for me, I think that, yeah, there's times where I want to be, a successful podcaster. I want to be podcasting full time, or a full time musician. I want to be there. But, stopping to appreciate the process and where I'm at right now is ultimately part of where I'll end up. And it's like, why spend, the majority of your life being unfulfilled because you haven't yet reached some quote unquote goal, when you could have been happy the whole time? You could have been in a balanced state of appreciating everything that's, led up to where you're at, and blending that with the excitement of what's to come. You got to appreciate your current reality kind of as much as you can. And that's something I've been really working on. And so, yeah, you nailed it with that. And, I'm, and about kind of what you were saying too about, kind of consuming. I mean, not that it's, negative entirely to consume, but I think it's just all about how you filter what you consume and how you can extract the value out of what you consume. I mean, me myself, despite the, the show being called What's Current, contrary to that show title, I don't foresee this show being based on current events per se. You might, I don't think that we'll frequently talk about things like politics or world issues, and not that, not that we find those things unimportant, but it's just, I think the only times we might bring that up is if they would relate to, ideas that we're trying to share. I'm not well versed in politics or world issues so much, just because I don't consume much of what's current with our world today. The only real news I consume comes from my friends or family. I guess I just figure that the most important stuff is going to find its way to me. So I'm not going to spend the extra time kind of searching to fill my mind with other stuff that might be the unimportant, and kind of what you were saying earlier about, trying to flip that and turn some of the consumption into creation. I've been, we've talked about that a lot. I've been working on my consume versus create ratio for a while now. I think that might be a whole nother show topic for us, but trying to shift, the majority of my time and attention towards the create side of things. And that's just because I feel like I am a creator by nature. And where we're at in 2020, the inbound clutter of content that bombards us, and at the rate it does, is already extreme. So we've got to manage our input in a way that kind of helps protect our gifts, because those can be compromised when you let too much get in the way of it. I don't think we need to go, I think that we can draw inspiration from what we consume, but I don't think that, we need to go out of our way to create meaningful content. Our strongest gifts, I think, are already inside us. So, if we're gonna kind of maximize what our God-given gifts are, we got to make the space and the clarity for that, because, you and I doing that and each kind of making a commitment, making space for this podcast, it's really just opening the doors for kind of the magic to hopefully, come out for the listeners, and just for this whole thing. Naturally, it's just us giving ourselves the time and space to do it. We already feel like we've got plenty to offer people, with our words, and we're both talkers. Too much so sometimes I feel like I am, but yeah, man. I think that, we've got a lot to share. And I think we should be sharing what we're most naturally compelled to share. I don't think What's Current is going to be a show where we fight to keep with the current trends or what other podcasts are talking about, or try to be the hottest podcast because we're on the cutting edge of, X, Y, or Z. Like, this is all about just being authentic, and we're going to hope that it inspires you to embrace yourself and your authenticity, as well.
Yeah. I'd say authenticity is core value of this podcast for sure. And one thing I also wanted to kind of reiterate or touch on that you were just talking about is that, everybody is full of creative energy. There are people, but it's just sometimes it's kind of locked up, or it's trapped, or it's, your mind might be in a negative state, and it seems like it's lost, but everybody's got it. I mean, that's kind of why humans are so powerful. Our brains are capable of enormous creative potential. So, but I think it is important when you look at that consume versus create ratio. I know myself, when I've been struggling or something, I definitely do consume more than I'm creating, and that kind of gets you off balance, can throw off the equilibrium of your life, and that can be frustrating for sure. Yeah. But one thing that I was just thinking though is that by nature, when you think about life, you have to consume in order to create. At least this is kind of a theory I would say I would believe, and I would kind of compare it to like your body's natural, like your basic needs. Like, in order to live, you have to eat food, you have to consume in order to grow and sustain life. So it's okay for, obviously we're going to be consuming information. It's very hard to come up with new ideas and thoughts and successful habits in order to grow just on your own. I mean, you kind of need some sort of stimulation, but I know that you're right. You got to kind of filter, you got to kind of censor yourself to what kind of information do you want to receive. I mean, do you want to be watching TV all day and you're going to be just bombarded with negative news and pharmaceutical drug commercials and on social media? You know, are you just following random influencers that are just selling products? You know, there's so much good out there. I've kind of been on the, I've had negative thoughts about social media for sure. And I've even gotten off. I've had like hiatuses before, months at a time, and that didn't even really fix the feeling that I was having where I thought I was consuming too much. But what I have noticed more recently is by filtering who I follow and what content I take in, you know, if it's stuff that helps me in my life and has a positive message and is geared towards personal growth, all of a sudden that consumption is a positive. And here we are creating this podcast. So, you know, I think it's all about what you're consuming. Just like if you're eating healthy food and whatnot, your body will be more healthy. But if you're eating, you know, crap food all the time, that consumption is a negative consumption.
Yeah, man. You're right. It's all about filtering, you know, our inputs. We've only got so much bandwidth, you know, and so it's like just like a computer with space. There's only so much that you can fill it with. So you got to kind of pick and choose your battles. And you know, I mean, again, consuming content. I think while it's fine, from my experience, if there's something you create, or if you have an outlet artistically or otherwise, do that first and then consume. Consuming before creating isn't necessarily the formula from my experience, but creating before consuming, I think, is a great formula because you know you got to let your mind be kind of clear to be able to create your best work, and you know, if you get some work in as early in the day as you can, or you know, whenever the first time you have a chance in the day to get something done creatively, you feel accomplished, and it's amazing what that can do to your psyche. And then suddenly, you know, it's okay to relax in the evening and kind of, you know, scroll through Instagram for a little bit or whatnot, because you've already put in your work. And then at night, you know, you read something or you know, whatever else, listen to a podcast, listen to this, you know, and this What's Current show, you know, can wire you up for the next day. I don't want you guys listening to What's Current first thing in the morning. Well, maybe the first episode, you know, go ahead, give us a spin, give us all your attention. But you know, nah, I mean, Sean, you know, I had a feeling that we were going to go deep on them first episode. I know we wanted this to just be the intro, and technically it still is, but you know, it's for us, I think, especially because we've been doing this so long, you know, it's we have so much that we want to talk about that we're just getting right to it. So I don't think there's any, you know, need to try and bottle that up. You know, hopefully we've already brought the people some value today, you know, but I think that, you know, at this point we've kind of set the tone a little bit for what people can expect. I think maybe it might have teetered on the serious side of things for the first episode, but again, I think we're just going to be providing what we're compelled to talk about at each current moment. And today, this has been what it was. These are some of the things that we were feeling like needed addressed off the bat. But again, you're going to get a variety out of this show. You know, I mean, Sean and I are going to talk about music, other just regular stuff, tell stories, and, you know, and there'll be some funny stuff going on. But, you know, we wanted to just, you know, keep it real and say, you know, we're here to bring value. We're not here to just kind of mess around and be something else regular in your stream of, you know, content on your device. We want to, help separate ourselves in a way that brings you more value than maybe some other things that you, you know, are consuming. But I mean, Sean, you got any parting words or ideas?
Yeah, I think kind of what you were hitting on there is, yeah, this could have been a little bit more serious, and you know, it's hard and just one episode to hit on everything we're going to hit on, because like we said, we don't even we have a lot of things we want to talk about. So I know we're both we've had some funny times for sure. So there will definitely be more of that, and music is obviously something we're both very into. So we're gonna keep this open and creative for the listeners too, for them to contribute what they want to hear about, and we're kind of just going off the cuff as we've said, and kind of seeing where it takes us, and just starting, and hopefully provide some value to people, and if for some reason it doesn't, we know we're providing value for ourselves, and that's something we'll always have, and but we're confident that other people will have enjoyed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never how you draw it up, but it is about just getting momentum, and just being okay with the product and realizing, whatever you put out is part of the process, even if it's different. You got to, kind of embrace what gets created, and see it as a stepping stone, to your development. But yeah, I mean, what you're saying is, we want you guys, the listeners, to kind of help us mold this thing together. We're always open to feedback, criticism about it, tips, suggestions, ideas. Tell us what's working, what's not working. It's all good. And if whenever we find feedback that resonates with us enough, Sean and I will make an honest effort to, bring some of that to life in the show. So we are down to talk about whatever sounds cool or whatever we think will entertain. So let us know. We'll provide some contact info, in the show notes. So DM us, email us, fax us, send a pigeon, smoke signal, whatever. Even text us a voice memo, and it just might make the show. That all being said, thank you guys for tuning in to the debut episode of What's Current, and we'll be back with the goods soon enough. Have a great week and or weekend, and Sean and I are outie.
Yep, we'll catch you guys later.
Peace. And just a quick post update. This was actually recorded back on May 16th. Not so current, but we've got a great episode coming to you guys very soon, so stay tuned.